Foran, he has scored!
We were living life.
It's open up and Manly.
There was no putting the brakes on it.
I'll tell you what, Kieran Foran knows where it is.
He's so much fun when he has a few drinks.
Kieran Foran's onto it.
He didn't want a pair of jeans with the old baked beans come out of it.
Score, Foran straight through.
But it was just about going out and connecting with your mates.
He batted down to Jerry Evans.
I mean, we spent more time together than we did at home.
Foran, Jerry Evans right there. Jerry Evans offloads back inside.
Yeah, when Fozzie's out for a beer, he's a good time.
Leo's ball for Foran.
And yeah, we spent plenty of good times off the field, you know, enjoying that. And I think that was part of what made us who we were.
Holds it up, gets it back to Kieran Foran.
Mama always told me that I couldn't sit still.
I think at 2015 it was starting to probably unravel a bit for me in terms of my personal life. To be a young guy that come out of high school straight into the NRL, you know, at 18 and a half, and just solely focused on my rugby league path and my success and my journey. And I was probably learning to distract from the pressures of life with some pretty unhealthy habits and tools, and my world was slowly becoming uncontrollable. You know, I was in deep addiction with certain things, you know, partying too much, drinking too much, or certainly gambling too much. And it was affecting my life and my life decisions. As a result, my mental health was suffering. And
there was always concerns. And I think probably for any parent of a young sports person, they hit that high, that stardom, the money, fans. And Kieran was a magnet for people. People wanted him in their corner, and he was dragged into all of that party hard, you know, scene. It was the times, and he was young. He never really wanted to let anybody down. So when somebody said, "Oh, come, Kieran, you know, let's go do this," he was always going to follow. It's a dangerous fine line to keep it balanced. Very quickly, you lose control. And you're in this horrible vault that you can't get out of.
Geez, I learned some tough lessons through that time of my life. I'd become a young dad, and I had my second child on the way, and made a lot of poor decisions, a lot of big mistakes, a lot of things I wish I could have done differently. You can't change it. You got to learn from it. On the outside, it looked like I had it all together. I was playing some good footy. I was playing for my country. A lot of the guys that I had come through with were starting to move on, and they had not been offered contracts and they'd left. Now had gone to Parramatta, Glenn Stewart had gone to South Sydney Rabbitohs, and Brent Clyde had gone to Penrith, and these were guys that I'd idolised and had shaped me and played with me. And
It was a tough time for everyone because everything that we built over, you know, so many years was falling apart.
there was a lot of change going on, and a few decisions going on with me and Daly's contracts, and could they keep both of us. And
we're actually quite open with each other about what our intentions were, and one day we were both staying, the next day we were both going. I guess the part that I didn't know at the time, probably how hard he was doing it away from footy in the same period. We were just so young and he was young, and these big life decisions that we've got to make as young men, it's really tricky in the media, in the spotlight of everyone else. So I can't imagine what he was going through, and I guess it's only over time that we've spoken about things and I've understood how tough he was doing it, and he just was putting on a brave face. But I think the growth in Foz now is, I think he'd be the first to admit if he was to go through what he was going through back then, he'd be a lot more open and talk about it. He'd use the people that are around him to get him through it and not do it on his own. I think that'd be the big evolution of him away from footy.
that had a huge effect on me mentally. I didn't realise at the time, but I look back on it now, and I'd always been a really loyal kid and a real loyal young guy, and I struggled immensely to deal with that decision. I tossed and turned, and Had been at Manly since I was 16 and it was all I'd ever known. My best mates played at the club and we wanted to stay and stay together, but there was just so much uncertainty around where the club was at the time. But I think because my life was so chaotic, I think I had this desire and this urge to chase something different. That something different was Parramatta. At 2016, personal life was at an all-time low. I was leading by example on the field, but off the field my life was a real mess. I had reached out to get help. I remember breaking down in Brad Arthur's office around Christmas time. I was just mentally completely and utterly cooked, exhausted, fragile. Was actually starting to get really concerned that I was going to make a fatal decision on my own life, and I ended up going into a sort of mental health clinic over Christmas time that no one knew about. We kept that under wraps. I tried to just get on top of things and just reset. For about 6 to 8 weeks, things felt like they were starting to get back on track and I was starting to make better decisions. And
Heck of a signing, 147 first grade matches, a grand final winner, and here he is, about to make his NRL debut for Parramatta.
I thought this might have worked, might have been just what I needed, but yeah, it just took a horrible turn and my life just started to fall apart again. And at that point I got an injury. I got a really bad shoulder injury playing for Para. I made a decision then one night in April that I was going to kill myself. Yeah, I just decided I couldn't do it anymore. I tried. It felt like I had exhausted every avenue, and I was broken. I couldn't stand the person I was. I couldn't stand the decisions I was making, the father I was to 2 young kids, the partner I'd been, the mate, just everything really. I just let so many people down, and I just never thought I could change.
What followed after that, the dynamics in the hospital, and being put into an induced coma, the 24 hours was very, very important as to whether he'd survive. For 24 hours, we didn't know whether he would. It was a moment in your life as a mum. I don't think I've ever prayed so hard in my life.
I've still to this day never really dissected it with my family around me. I can't bring myself to really talk about the impact that it had on them at that time, and me making a decision like that. And my sister was the one that had actually come and saved me and rung the ambulance and the police, because she was, I think, the last phone call I'd made at that point. I just think it's had a horrific impact on their lives, and not to mention what we're living through now. What I've seen, the devastation that Logan's death has left behind in Karina and all of her family, and you just can never think it's an option. It just never is. It can never ever be a thought. It can never be an option in your life. It doesn't matter where you're at. It was never worth making a decision like that. That's the message that I try and tell so many people now. It can never ever be an option in your head. It solves nothing. Destroys every life around you. It tears hearts out and rips them into pieces, and hearts are completely broken and holes are left forever. And yeah, I thank God every day I'm here. I thank those around me that I'm here every single day, and I get a second shot at life, because you know, it was pretty close there. You know, I wouldn't be here today.
Massive news in rugby league with the revelations that Kieran Foran will walk away from the game.
I'd quit the game of rugby league. Yeah, I wasn't even well enough to think I could be alive. How could I play rugby league? My sole focus was on trying to find happiness again in life and get myself right, so that I could be a dad to two young kids and be a good family person.
When Kieran Fish reached out to me, I was a little bit shocked about where he was at. Really eye-opening sort of 3 or 4 days with Kez. Learned a lot about some of the challenges of a young sportsman, particularly in a big place like Sydney. It was a pretty extraordinary sort of 72 hours, and then to sort of work out that Kieran was struggling with his gambling, the financial position he was in and some of the things he was doing, and he was getting some really unfortunate media at the time. It was just all caving in on the young fella, and obviously his mental health had deteriorated as a result. And look, you know, there's no quick fix to that situation. You know, you're talking about a build-up over 6, 7, 8 years that takes time to work through.
You know, at that time of my life, walking away from the game, and it's just so you know, it's one of these decisions I wish I could have handled so much differently, and one of these decisions I wish I could have taken back. You know, I feel really bad that I let a lot of great people down, specifically Brad Arthur in that period. That, you know, had given me a wonderful opportunity. The people at Parramatta, the fans, the club that had taken me in and expected me to go there and lead and captain that club, and I don't think there was any other choice but to walk away from the game. I couldn't have kept turning up to training and playing in the state I was in. It just wasn't going to work that way. I've learned in life you can push through some things, and you should stay the course a lot of the time, and I'm a big believer in that now, you know, and that's where I've done a lot of work on myself and in my mental space and things like that. But there's times in your life where things are so bad that you just need to get yourself right, and that was where I was at. I couldn't worry about the people I was letting down and the decisions that were going to hurt people. I had to make sure that I was alive to be a father to my kids, and that was the priority. And it hurt a lot of people in the process, that decision. I know it did. You can't change it. I wish I'd gone to Parramatta and my life was in a far different state and it was roses and butterflies, but it wasn't, and you know, you got to live with that. Yeah, we focused initially on the first couple of months on getting myself right mentally, to a point where I thought maybe I did have the desire to come back to the game, and at that point, you know, coincidentally, Jim Doyle had reached out to me, who I knew through New Zealand Rugby League and who was the CEO of the Warriors at the time.
We were really honest. We had to be really honest that Kieran was a bit broken physically, that he was challenged, you know, with some mental health as well. I'll be forever grateful for Jim. Jim Doyle's a very good man, and they understood where Kieran was at, but they thought it was a good environment for him, and I think they thought they could get value out of him, both as a player and as a leader.
It felt like it would be the only option if I was to come back to rugby league that would be considered, and I jumped at it.
Got off the plane, I caught up with him straight away and walks out and he's in a sling, you know what I mean? Like, He's soundboarding me, you think it's the right decision. I said, mate, whatever you want to do, like, you come here, we got your back through and through. How about just come back here, re-establish yourself, get yourself into a good enough state to see if you want to still do this. You know, like, it was tough, hey, tough, because it was a person you cared so much about. You knew had a really good heart.
Stephen Kearney, the coach at the time, you know, really looked after him, and
you know, we wanted to try and win footy games, but it was trying to help him on a path to, you know, getting himself, you know, back together again. I saw him as a close friend, and you know, trying to help him navigate that part of his journey.
I loved every moment of having him here, part of our crew. It wasn't easy for him, you know, he's away from his kids, he's away from his family, his support base, but he just dove in. And the only way he knows how to, and that's commit. Round 5, he got to, yeah, make his debut for the club.
He'll be allowed and cleared to return.
Obviously, I was always apprehensive as to when the day would come.
Clearly, I've said all the way along, I want to see him playing back on the field, but his welfare off the field is more important. So he's made good progress, and I'm really happy with his progress.
And there he is, Kieran Foran, Warriors player number 217, arguably the most anticipated debut that we've had at this club for many years, Kieran Foran. Johnson, Foran, they swing it to the left. Foran! Oh, welcome back to the NRL, Kieran Foran. Foran scores on debut for the Warriors.
It gave me a space to heal and to fall in love with the game again that I needed at that time of my life, for sure.
you know, he was a big signing for the club that year, and you know, it was good for him, but it was also good for the Warriors.
It wasn't the easiest year. He was still battling demons. He had to work through that. By the end of that time, though, he was starting to get through it. He was starting to breathe. He was starting to see the light.
I always said to Jim and the Warriors that it would be a one-year thing. I was very honest with them about that. I was very grateful for the opportunity to come back home and restart my career with the Warriors, but I had indicated, you know, I had 2 young kids in Sydney at the time, and that I needed to come home at the end of that season. I fielded interest from some clubs, you know, after that 27 season with the Warriors, and at that point Des had reached out and he knew me. I was excited by that.
And then the other big news for the Bulldogs is Kieran Foran's signing is imminent.
Oh, he loves his footy. Yeah, he's got a good footy IQ. There's no doubt about it. Preps really well. He prepares really well for a game of footy. Fully invested in his craft.
One of the huge sort of, I guess, pulling factors to getting me to Canterbury was the fact that I would be coached by Des again, a coach that I'd won a premiership with, a coach that I loved playing for, and an environment I knew I could thrive in. And before I even got there, they had sacked him. I'd learnt that these things happen and you don't get to control it. And I'd committed to Canterbury for 3 years, and I was gonna see that out.
Foran showed it in, and then he goes himself.
I'd found some good form again, playing some of the best footy that I hadn't played in years. Was wondering, would I ever play for the Kiwis again? I guess hoping and wishing that the phone call might come, and yeah, Madge reached out.
What I loved about him was what the Kiwi jersey meant to him. It was extremely special, and he was one of the favourites, obviously, because, you know, he was a bit more senior at times, but he, along with Jesse Bromwich, Joe Hargreaves, Sean Johnson, they really helped shape where the Kiwis have got themselves at this moment in time. Foz used to sit up late at night with myself and we just talk footy and what he wanted that Kiwi jersey to look like and represent, and I think he played a big part in helping show the path for a lot of the players that are currently playing in that jersey. Love talking about, you know, where he came from and what it meant to the people of New Zealand. I think that was something there that really resonated every time I had the conversations with Foz.
I didn't play the first Test match. I think they played Australia and Wollongong. Didn't play that game, and then went back to New Zealand and got handed a spot in the team for the Test match against Great Britain. It just felt like my life was starting to turn again. What an incredible moment this will be. All these years out from wearing that jersey, finally given the opportunity again, I go into a tackle. Reel out with a stinger in my shoulder, I thought at the time, but it had dislocated, popped out.
Starting for 4 more, he looks in some discomfort, it must be said. Oh, gee whiz. In the 6th minute, can you believe? First Test back in the Kiwis for 2.5 years, and That might be his day.
You wouldn't read about it, would you? I think I'd never dislocated a shoulder, and I was in some pain, and I went back into the sheds, came off the field. I couldn't believe it. Just in shock that I'd dislocated my shoulder 3 minutes into a test match that I'd worked so hard to get back to. I'll never forget Madge coming in, after the game, and we'd just won. He should have been celebrating the win, it was one of New Zealand's great victories against Great Britain, and the heart of the man, he saw me in the corner, and I could see his eyes welling up, and I don't think he could believe my luck either, and it was just a moment we just both broke, and I remember at that moment just feeling an incredibly special bond with Madge from that point on. I think it broke him too, knowing that I was going to have to go through another mountain to get back to where I wanted to get back to, and you could just see the pain in his face as well.
We were all devastated for him because you could see how keen he was to be playing. But sure enough, you move further on, and all of a sudden he's a part of a team that's created history in a big way in a test match against obviously one of the toughest opponents in Australia.
COVID saved my career. Crazy to say that I was at a broken point of my footy career. My shoulder had just been operated on. I was told I was going to need 9 months to a year to return to the field, which was the final year of my playing contract, which would have been curtains. And that would have been it for me, probably, never to play again. And COVID hit, and players were sent home, and the game stalled, and everything stopped. I found a new lease of life. I could rebuild my body at home. I just knuckled down. I don't know how long the comp got delayed for. I came back and played some really good footy through that year of 2020. My shoulder held up good, my body was feeling good. I was talking to the club about potentially extending, wanting to give back to Canterbury. Unfortunately, they decided not to keep me on, and a week later I tore my pec. Wow, I was gone. I just ruptured my pec after coming back from a 7-month shoulder surgery. There wasn't a club in the NRL that wanted me until I rang Manly, really. Des picked up, and the words I said to him was, if you just back me, I'll play for free. A fire just lit inside me after that. I didn't miss a game, hardly. I think I missed 2 games in 2 seasons. It was just, I went back to Manly, and with the help of Desi and a couple of other significant people back there, none other than Cam Ferguson, rebuilt me from sort of broken body back to being able to compete every single week. It was unbelievable when you look back on those 2 years there, and at that point their salary cap was in a pretty tough spot. There were other priorities and other players to get done, and I understood that. My agent reached out, and I think the Titans felt that they could do with some experience and some leadership. This could be a good move for both sides, and I haven't looked back.
You always believed in me.
She just amazes me.
You saw what I couldn't see.
He just didn't remember who he was and what he was. He just forgot those beautiful parts and those strong parts of himself.
And when you told me I could fly.
It was just so cool to watch their relationship, and the way he looked at her and the way she looked at him. And
I reached up and touched the sky.
Back through the middle. Oh, the tough bugger.
Yeah, it's starting to feel real now.
I just don't even have words that can justify how special that is.